It is important to find out where is the right position for the helper, right? That is the orders or the second order of love. Don't forget, you are the first one to apply the orders of love, right? When you work with it, you cannot apply the orders of love of Bert Hellinger and then don't apply it on your own work, right? So then we look at how to lead a client, and this is also in a one-on-one situation, right? So that's not only in a group necessarily. Then we have an exercise. I hope the other guys who have signed up are coming on the module too. But anyhow, we are 4, so that will still work. We have an exercise where you can practice with all you have learned to lead a client, yeah, in a kind of exercise situation with your buddy here from the training. Then we will talk today about leading a group or the group, especially when you're facilitating family constellation in a group setting, important. We are talking about group dynamics. We are talking about leading the representatives in a family constellation. That's a different thing. And then we are talking about how to use or change the words to make the family constellation that you are facilitating stronger, yeah, with more impact. And then we finally also talk about traps you could fall into in a family constellation workshop, especially in a group situation. Because we talk about one-on-ones in detail in 5th module. So we are focusing here on the group. Okay, and then we have an exercise. You get to lead a group, right? Okay, now let's talk about the family constellation facilitator. And I have here a quote from you, from Bert Hellinger, which I will read out to you. All you have to do is to place yourself in the position as a facilitator and trust the field to guide you all the way, right? We are working with a morphogenetic field who is not only guiding the client and the representative, it's guiding also you, also the helper, the facilitator, right? So you're not excluded from the morphogenetic field. You are within. And this work can only be done if you have the trust in the morphogenetic field that you will get the right information to the right time that is needed for you to facilitate the constellation. And I know this might sound a little bit daunting, but in fact it is really easy. Because you don't need to remember all the time, you don't need to think hard. Yeah? Of course you have to have all your knowledge, but the knowledge needs to be digested. Yeah, that needs to be you already. And then you can let go of all of that. So be assured, once you have once you have embraced the whole knowledge in a way that it is part of you, you don't need to do anything. What is that, Rosemary? What is this thumb?
You were breaking up a little.
Hard to understand.
Really? Oh my gosh, has it just started or?
Now it's good. Now it's good.
It's a bit
Well,
quick, yeah.
Well, that's just the internet, so we can't probably do anything about that. No? Okay, so let's talk about the position of the helper. The position of the helper is at the bottom of the system next to the client. We talked about that in module 1 in belonging. Briefly, I hope I have talked about that, or in module 2. You are part of the family system when you are facilitating a family constellation. Yeah? You go in, you connect, you are with the family system for the time you are facilitating. As much as the representatives are part of somebody else's family system for the duration of the constellation. So now we have to ask ourselves, when you think about, okay, mother comes before child, grandfather comes before mother, before child, then we have to think about where is the helper, where is the facilitator in this system, right? And you might think, well, it's on top or something like that, right? On top of everybody else. That is not correct. The helper is on the bottom, like on the bottom means the first level, the first generation. If you remember our little chart with the moving people, he is the first next to the client, right? Which means because, and that's easy to remember, he came last, right? In this family system, the helper comes in as last. No doubt about that, right? Okay. Now, what I also want to tell you is that you are not working for the client. Guess what? For whom are you helping? For whom are you working? Yes, Reem?
Family system.
Exactly. You want to say the same, Charlotte? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the
Yeah,
field
the
for
whole
that.
thing. Exactly. So your client is actually not your concern, right? The client came sent by the family system to heal a family wound through the burden or suffering or pain or encumbrance this client is carrying. Yeah. And this is sometimes also, I don't want to say hard, but at the beginning, a little bit challenging to not try to please the client, because that's not why you are there. You are there to heal a family wound. And a side effect of this healing will be inevitably that the client is released from his burden he came with. Yeah. So this is why you're standing next to the client, but with a little bit of distance, because you want to have the whole family system in your view, right? Not only the client. However, the client is extremely important because he came to you. He is the one who felt drawn to your work, guided by the family system and their morphogenetic field, right? So of course, you always have an eye on the client and see in his reactions if the constellation is coming to a peak, to a release, right? So this is what you see in the client. Okay. The family system always comes first, before you, before even the client, right? The family system is actually our client, although we don't say that. Like, we don't use this terminology. As I said before, the position of the helper is not to lecture. Yeah? I'm lecturing because I'm training you guys. But in a workshop, I'm not lecturing. Yeah? I let the field work through me, through the representatives, right? And I make sure that I'm not confusing the field with some mental constructs about the work. Yeah? And I know as a beginner, you might, that is completely normal, feel a little bit unsure to work with other people, but you feel absolutely sure about what you know. So you feel like, okay, there is a group and this is all a little bit daunting, so I might actually talk about everything I know, right? That's a lecture. So take care or be aware that you're not doing that. You can talk about family constellation if it's a beginner's, like an introductory workshop, of course. No, you can talk about family constellation, what it is, how it works, and then you start. You start with the work. That's why everybody is there for. That's why you are there for. And what you do is you let go of all this knowledge that you have and be assured that everything that you have learned, the practice that you have gained, everything, your whole life is leading to this point. and the clients and the representatives brought to you are ready for you, and you are ready for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. There is a beautiful quote. I forgot who it was, but it says, "The universe does not make any mistakes," right? But sometimes there is some misunderstanding. Yeah, maybe Khalil Gibran or somebody, I don't know. But anyhow, so this, remember that who comes to your event is meant to be there because of you, right? And just take this as a reassurance. Whatever your limits are, so is exactly what they need. Yeah? They need your limits. They are not ready to go deeper or wider or far or whatnot. They need that. They need the limits that you have, right? So that's beautiful. So you can be completely relaxed and really trust. Just trust in the field that everything has been, like, everybody who comes together in this group meant to be there. And just get exact, and they will all get exactly what they should get. Yeah. So now this is a challenging thing. The position of the helper is also that the helper doesn't want to achieve anything. The helper doesn't want to achieve a certain outcome. Yeah. The client wants it, but not the helper. The helper is there to help the family system, and the helper has no idea what the outcome is for the client. You know, that's within the field, that's within the morphic field, that's within the family system. And that's also why not one constellation fixes it all, you know. For most of the people coming to constellation, this is a journey. It's a continuous journey. Yeah. Hmm? So you sitting, with the client, you want to achieve nothing. You are there, you are, let's draw this picture of a flower. Let's say you're a flower. In the morning, you open up your petals and you are just there. You're inviting the bumblebees and the butterflies and the honeybees and who else wants your nectar. Everybody can come. You are not going to them. No, they come. Who wants to come comes. Who doesn't want to come doesn't come. And then in the evening, the flower closes the petals again, and this time is over, right? And that is you being a helper in a family constellation workshop. You're just opening your heart, connect with the field, and you are there. You are there for them. Whatever is needed, you have it. Hmm? You have the nectar, right? They just need to get it. You're just offering it, right? And if a client, and we come through that in troubleshooting, if a client is not taking the offer, that's their problem, not yours, right? So don't feel sorry for a client like this. This is a lecture to learn, a lesson to learn for them. Yeah. That they are not going where you can take them because they are not ready. But the they needed the encounter with you and the group for some reason that you will never understand. To take the next step in the direction that the client wants to go, or the family system. So trust is really the most important part of the mental state of a helper. So you have no desire to help, but that falls in the same category, right? We are all very enthusiastic when we start with work with groups or one-on-ones or family and friends, right? Of course, and that's great. I don't want to discourage you to be enthusiastic, yeah? But once like you have stepped out of the beginner's shoes, and you feel, you're feeling you have advanced as a helper, as a facilitator. You have to you have to cut back on your excitement emotion and your desires, right? To help. and relax and just be present. Hmm? Just be present. And Bert Hellinger was the best teacher of all. He was so present. I don't know whether you see it on the old videos, but he was so present when he was sitting there with the client that you could really touch this presence. And often he didn't say anything, right? For a while. And the good news is everything that I'm talking to you about, you can all learn that, you can all practice that, you can all become that. Yeah. Nobody cannot do that. Okay. Okay. So, uh, for that to be present with the client and the group and not have the desire to help or the desire to do anything, we will practice that. We will practice that. We call that waiting in silence or waiting in silence. Yeah, because that's difficult. You always want to do. We all want to do things. Huh? This is typical for us. And then when we are nervous, we even want to do it faster and quicker. And so the good practice here is to wait in silence, and we have an exercise for that for a while before we talk, yeah, or before the client talks. Then also the position of the helper is not to try to do something, yeah. You always need to think about your work as like you are guided as are so when we say to the representatives, you don't need to do anything, you just relax, information will come to you. The same appears to the facilitator. Same applies to the facilitator. The facilitator doesn't need to do something. Of course you do something, you walk around, you say words and so, but that is not a doing that is generated in the ego mind, in the personality. Yeah, that is a kind of doing that you are guided to do, and there's a big difference, and you can feel that clearly when that happens. What you have to do is not to desire, not to do something, not to, to be able in this position of waiting in silence and wait for the field to give you information is to empty yourself. You need to be empty. It's like a glass, a full glass. When you sit, like, let's make this picture. You're sitting in the hot chair or next to the hot chair, yeah, and instead of you sitting there is a full glass, yeah, water glass filled up to the rim. Now, what can the client, what can the family system pour in there? Nothing, right? It's already full. So what you have to picture is you sit on your chair and instead of you, there is an empty glass. Maybe there's a little bit in, there can be a little bit more in, but definitely not full. Yeah. So then the client can pour in information, the family system can pour in information. Now you are able to receive something. Yeah. So what do I mean when I talk about a water glass? I mean your knowledge, your information. Yeah. When you sit there, you have to have the attitude, I do not know anything. I know nothing about the client. I know nothing about the family system. I know nothing about the dynamics. I know nothing. No pre-assumptions. And even when the client starts to talk, you still practice the art of not knowing. You let him talk, but you still don't know anything. And if that sounds a little bit weird to you now, it will all make sense once we practice, yeah? So if you have a hard time to not to go in the state of not knowing, just think of the water glass. Make sure there is space that information can come through. There is a lovely ask your teachers for support to support you in the right position of the helper. Always ask also for support, spiritual support of your teachers, of course, right? They are there. They were happy to help. You can even ask your parents or your grandparents or your own ancestors for spiritual support. You you can ask other experienced facilitator for their support spiritually because you are in the same field. So there's another morphogenetic field, a field of information that is embodied by family constellation facilitators as a field. Yeah. So you can also tap in that and just ask for support silently. It doesn't look good if you do that aloud in front of the group, but you can do that silently, right? Oh, so that's a funny story. So when I trained with Bert and Sophie Hellinger, and then somebody in the group, we started. It was a long. It was I was 4 years with him, and then it was then to the end, people were starting to work and practice and stuff. So when we got together and we're checking in and in the group experience, what did somebody said? Oh yeah, yeah. When I have my practice group. Then I put not only 2 chairs in there for me and the hot chair for the client, I also put 2 chairs behind. Yeah, and he is envisioning Bert and Sophie Hellinger sitting there, right, in support, right? I found that really interesting. I think it's probably a bit spooky to have 2 empty chairs behind. I'm not quite sure how to feel about that. But without putting chairs there, you can also, spirit's not sitting down anyhow. So, you can just picture your teachers or any kind of spiritual guides you have behind you. And that will make you um, remember and that will guide you. So if you're interested in this art of not knowing, which is really there's a really wonderful book. It's called The Book of Not Knowing by Peter Ralston, and it's also available for download in Audible. He was a sportsman. I don't remember what sports it was, and then I think he got injured or something, and then his whole world was kind of breaking down. And then he inquired into not knowing for some reason. It's really, really interesting with great insights. So now we talk about how to lead the client. Oh, hang on, probably a quick round to check in. Any questions to the art of helping? Just unmute everyone and let's have a little catch up about the art of helping so far. All good?
Yeah.
Rosemary.
It sounds very, very easy, but maybe it's not.
Actually, it sounds very easy. That means it's going to be, for me, I think it's going to be challenging because it sounds so easy.
I totally understand that. And I'm not meaning that you feel at ease in your first years when you practice that. I'm just giving you a tidbit of how it is, how it's supposed to be later on, right? Because you have some, everything comes with practice, practice, practice. And you will have years of practice first. Of course, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. But if you know where to head, yeah, then you can already, set the tone in your first practice workshop.
And like you were saying, we're going to attract the people that are ready for us where we're at.
Yeah.
Wherever that is, and that's okay, isn't it?
That's totally
as much as we can open to the field, we'll get people who are. Yeah.
Totally. Because this is how the field works. This is how the universe, this is a natural law, right? You never ever get more than you can chew than you buy the more than you can chew.
Bite more than you can chew.
Yeah. You do that maybe as a personality, but if you invite the field to, let the universe take over, then you never get something that you can't handle. That's impossible. Yeah.
Charlotte, if I may just comment on that, what you said, like, I mean, I said this to Maya before, like, there's no workshop that I've ever attended that I didn't at least find one or two clients that I completely relate to, like, as if their thing is like exactly tailored for me. And I said the same thing to my sisters. I
Yeah,
just
right.
sign up for what I workshop, and the same thing happened to her. It just happened like at least one or two clients. She's like, "Oh my God," it was like they're talking about me. I was like, "I told you." It's just so weird how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get loads of clients that mirror our own issues.
That's also
Oh.
something we talk about in module 4, I think. Very in depth because, yep, you will. And also, as you know, representative, as just Reem shared, as a representative, you are always resonating with what you're standing for, who you're standing for in some way, shape, or form, because this is also no coincidence. So, yeah, so it's a most beautiful work, and everything is good, but I totally acknowledge you will be nervous at the beginning, and it doesn't feel that easy. That is just how it is with everything you start, right? With absolutely everything. So this should not be a thing that keeps you from doing it. Yeah? Right? Okay. So now we are talking about leading the client. So the client, the whole, how can I put it? The family constellation starts with a client, right? Have you seen constellations without a client? Maybe, maybe not. So that's a good question because I have seen constellations without a client, and that can have multiple reasons. It could be that the client is not there, right? So that the facilitator talks to somebody before who cannot come. And yes, you can constellate that. You have an empty chair, but you can constellate with the agreement of the client, of course. Yeah. You can invite the family system to come and constellate. So the client doesn't need to be physically present. But definitely there needs to be an agreement before you do that. You cannot do that for somebody who doesn't agree with it. Yeah, so that's one thing. The second thing is where you constellate without a client is when you have a general inquiry. People like to do that, and this is going like in the kind of in the way people using family constellation like a crystal ball to look into. Yeah, and I extremely warn you to do that because it's tempting, but this is not how the field works. If there is not one sent by the family system to look at the family wound, you will not get any cohesive results. Yeah. So whatever is happening there, it is not a constellation. Yeah. I have an example for you. Um, if you Google, you find a video that has been taped 2 years ago, where Sophie Hellinger was facilitating a workshop somewhere in East Europe, and maybe in Russia. I don't remember. And that was the start of the coronavirus. So she wanted to look with the group at this coronavirus and what it entails and what it means for us. Of course, she knew she cannot just say, okay, let's look at the coronavirus. There needs to be a client. There needs to be a genuine interest in looking at it. So what she was formulating in this constellation was not we want to look at the coronavirus. She was formulating is how can we as a group, meaning the group that was gathering, yeah, help humanity in this time of coronavirus, right? So all of a sudden, the whole group became the client. And of course, there was a representative for the group. right? So one representative was chosen for the group, one was chosen for, I don't remember, humanity maybe, the other one for China because the virus was in China, then the other one for the virus. You know how that goes, right? But you have the client, which was the group of the workshop, and they wanted to know how they can help, right? And that is a genuine um, way to look at a broader issue. However, I would not recommend you to do that in the early stages of your work. It's very frustrating, because you will be a little bit lost because you never know. Am I still in a constellating or am I looking in a crystal ball? No, now, because they are fine, they are fine lines. So stick to, and then you don't know if what you see is the result is anything, cohesive. So stick to having a client with a family, until it naturally becomes something which you can expand into. Back to the client. So how do we lead a client? How does the relationship with the client start? Is you invite a client to constellate. And I'm talking here about a workshop situation, not the one-on-one. Because in the workshop, there might sit people who want to constellate, and there might sit people who don't want to constellate. Yeah? So you have to ask who wants to constellate. And you have to ask after or at the beginning of every constellation, because with every constellation, all like resonating with a morphic field, all participants are changing. And somebody who came and wanted to constellate, put the hand up, yeah, me, at the beginning of a constellation, and then you ask again after two constellations, might not raise a hand. Because they have already, through representing or resonating, they have already advanced, they have already received what they needed. No? Or on the other hand, somebody who doesn't put up their hands, and then all of a sudden, last constellation, and you think, oh, I'm good with time, I'm through. Say, nah, me, right? And that's also important because everything in the constellation led to something that needs to be looked at now. So because we are working always in the now, we are not planning anything. And I mean it. Don't plan it. And if you think, oh, I have 5 people in my first workshop, everybody needs to have a constellation, don't. You cannot plan. Yeah. And you don't need to give everybody a constellation. Yeah. Everybody gets out of it what they need. You have to trust. That's how it works. Right? So what are you doing if like 5 or you have 5 people in the workshop and 3 are putting up their hand? Whom do you choose? Let's ask. So what is your strategy? Whom would you choose? No idea? You're muted.
Can you repeat the question? Because it really cut out when you were asking it, I think.
Oh, what a shame. I wonder, is that my mic or is that the internet?
I think the connection with your mic, because like, there's a static,
But then there is a cutout, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's weird. I normally that's really clear.
I
see
think
if I
it
can do something.
sounds better now.
Oh, okay. I tried to
Okay.
do something in the break. Maybe I can play around with this. So my question was, if you have 5 people in the workshop and 3 are putting up their hands when you ask who wants to constellate, what is your strategy? Whom do you choose? You can only work with one.
I think you will feel like drawn to one of them.
Okay.
Maybe. Like the field will guide you, wouldn't it? And that would be the person that would benefit the group the most, I suppose.
Very good. How do you think it would feel? What is the feeling you think it would feel?
Drawn to that person? Like you sometimes get drawn to like those Legos figurines?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, drawn to it. Yeah.
And isn't it just like what you were saying before, the knowing that
Yeah.
whoever you pick is the
Yeah.
right person? So you just hand
Exactly.
it over and say, it's you. And like you don't
Exactly.
need to do too much about it.
Exactly. That's the other strategy. You don't need to feel much. You just say you.
Yeah.
Bert Hellinger had a very specific way to pick. He actually never asked. Nobody put the hand up. He was looking in the audience, and he had up to 400 people, right? And was look, and then he said, "You." And then it was, "Ah!" and then So so that's another way. I don't do that. I'm really, I want them to choose. I think that's part of the whole group dynamic and group journey is that they choose. So I'm not going to do, but you're welcome to do that. It's guided by. If you think from the 3 people who put up their hands, you are like drawn, like Reem said, or like Charlotte said, you just pick another one. That's good too, right? You just pick them. You don't need to explain why. You say, you come. Right? Yeah. So, okay, so this is how we start with a constellation. You invite to constellate. Then, where do the clients sit? Where does the client sit? You all know it, I know, because you all have been, but you may have never thought about it. Or anybody here who hasn't been in an in-person workshop and only virtual. Oh, Kaisha, you haven't. Okay, cool. All right. So I cannot assume that you have seen it then. Mm, so, yeah, Reem?
No, I have it in person, but I think you sit next to the facilitator.
Yeah, on which side?
Oh God. I think on the left. I could be wrong, but I think on the left.
Rosemary?
It's on the right-hand side.
On the right-hand side. Yeah? Very good. It's
And
on the
why is it
right-hand
on the
side. Why is that? Because right comes first. The client comes first, right? Also, when we
Yeah.
put the
Okay.
order, and I know this sounds sexistish, but this is the orders of love. The man comes before, like it's on the right side of the woman. Yeah, and that has not to do with that is just like it's just, how can I put it, energetically biology or something like that, right? It feels, if you can see that every time in a constellation, and remember this is a method that is I hate this word, etymologisch, meaning comes from experience. It's all about experience, right? So you can see in family constellations when you have a man-woman relationship and it is right, the relationship is not disturbed, the man is on the right side. It feels right for both representatives. They don't want to swap. Yeah, they want it that way, right? And we learn the orders and we work with them. That's all we do, right? So the right
Yeah.
side is always the one, that is kind of before, yeah? And I'm not talking about like day-to-day life, but I'm talking about the family situation, the family in a family constellation. So therefore, your client is on the right. Hmm? There's also, you can remember that when with the saying, this is my right hand, like, you have somebody who is very important, who's helping you. Without somebody, you can't do work or do my right hand. This is the right side. This is the important side. Hmm? Yeah. So the client sits on the right side. Mm, what else can we say? What kind of chairs would you pick? Like so nice fauteuil, like, or a sofa, or well, just let me know. Grim?
I don't know. The ones that I've seen were like the normal, like very light, simple with the back chairs, like dining table kind of chairs, the
Ah,
wood
yeah,
kind of chairs or
yeah,
plastic ones.
yeah, yeah. Would you put there some more comfortable chairs? Kaisha, I see you're thinking. Would you? Would you not?
I think if
No,
it's too comfortable, they might fall asleep or they might, I don't know. I think it has to be something which gives them support at the back, but also that not too comfortable that you slouch and, you know, I don't know. I've
very
never,
good.
so I'm not sure.
Very good. You're absolutely right. You don't want them to be comfortable. Yeah. Under no circumstances. Because why is that? If they are we are working with the subconscious mind, right? Like in a scientific way, if I would explain that. So if the subconscious mind it has all the information that needs, because if it would be in the conscious mind, then the problem would already be solved. Because we are all good thinkers and we can think things through, and if it doesn't help to think about it, then something is not in the conscious mind, right? In the subconscious mind. Now the subconscious mind is a tricky little bugger, right? It doesn't want to reveal the information, and as more comfortable the subconscious mind is, as stronger it is, and it won't not reveal any information. However, if the person is really uncomfortable, the subconscious mind starts to move also. And then when you're connecting to the morphogenetic field, you are picking on the subconscious information, right? This is why you don't want to sit them at all comfortable. There's also another reason. You don't want to go in a chit-chat situation with your client when you work with family constellation. In fact, you don't want to talk them much at all. But when they sit comfortable and feel comfortable, they start to chit-chat, right? And all of a sudden you spend 20 minutes listening to his stories. Yeah. But you don't want to listen to his stories. You want to work. Yeah. And it's hard to get out of it. This is why I would extremely recommend put two really hard chairs on there, and make sure the client is not comfortable. Of course, when you're sitting, you're having your armchair and then having like a really kind of tortured chair next to you, that doesn't look good. So you might want to have the same chairs, but you can have a cushion, for example, and the client has no cushion. Yeah, yeah, very good. And then also there's a gap between the chairs. Don't put them close together. There needs to be a distance between the chairs so you are able to resonate with the field and not only with the client. Yeah, because you are there for the family system, but not too far away that you cannot reach, because sometimes you need to reach. You need to give them a whack on the back, or things happen like this, or something. So you want to be able to reach, but you don't want to be next to each other, because then the magnetic field of the body is just too strong, and you need a little bit of distance to see the whole picture. Yeah. Okay, then the next step is when you lead a client. You think, oh, well, I asked the client. No, that's not the next step. The next step is to connect with the field. And this is why you want to practice silence and waiting. No, this is where you connect with the field. Even if the client talks, and shares all the stories. So how I do it is, like, sometimes I allow them to do that because I feel there's a need to get that off the chest, in a way, but I don't hear it. It's going in and out. I'm not relying on this information. They're not coming from the field. They're emotional. They're from the ego. They're from the personality. They're not coming from the field, right? And then I said, okay, enough, right? And then we sit, right? Then we sit, and then I have already, while the client was talking and the information goes through me, I already, picked up information from the field, so I know where to start. Right? So that you're connecting with the field is the next step. You stay empty and collected, and you can also feel what he or she is feeling, right? That's okay. You can do that, as long as you have a bit of distance and you just observe this feeling and it's not becoming yours, right? You're not picking it up like an empath. You are feeling it, right? Because you're seeing it basically. So we talked about that already. Let him talk or not talk. That is the question here, free after Shakespeare. So Bert Hellinger never let anybody talk, right? Quite frank. He says, sit, and then, sht, said, sht. And then he was sits and wait, and then he asked question. He asked what is about your father? What is about your mother? So, which is great. I wouldn't start like this at all. Like this is may happen or may not happen. It doesn't need to be like this. The client can talk, but not too long. And don't put too much weight on what he's saying. Neither, right? Again, when he would know where the source of his problem is, he would have solved it already before he came to you. But he doesn't know it, right? And then there are informations that are coming from the field, and they normally come during the constellation, not before. And then you know, oh, that's not my client talking, that's an information from the field. For example, client talks and talks and talks. You say, okay, enough, now we constellate, put father, mother there, grandfather, something that, information that you received, that you picked up. And then you put it there, and then the grandfather is standing there, and then all of a sudden the client says, you might see, okay, the grandfather, he's angry or something, did he lose something? What is he angry at? And then your client says maybe, oh my gosh, my mother told me that he lost his property or something like that, in a war or whatever, right? That is an information from the field now. Why do we know that? Because he wasn't thinking of it before. Otherwise, he would have told you on the chair, but he wasn't thinking of it. It came through him. Now, this is an information you really need to be aware of. Like this is leading you forward in the constellation. It's the same as if a representative would say something. Right. So less talking is better. Probably not when you begin, but in general, less talking is. But then there are important informations you shouldn't miss neither. Okay. Very important if you start to ask questions to the client, no suggestive questions, right? The questions are not, what is a suggestive question is like, when he talks about his father and how he, oh, he abused me and this, then you said not to him, oh, that must have been really hard. That is a suggestive question, right? Okay. And anyhow, you're not reacting to the story anyhow, because we are not working with stories, right? So what would you say when he said, oh, my father was so abusive? I don't know, he locked me in the cupboard all the time, whatever he says. What would you say? Unmute and let me know what you say. Charlotte?
Maybe I would say, how old were you?
Okay. Good. That's a good start.
So not pass on the thing, but just, yeah, exactly. Try and work out the timeline.
Okay. Right.
Not
Good.
work it out, but.
Okay,
Or
let's
just
take
say, is there
that.
anything? Yeah.
Okay. And Rosemary? What did you say?
Maybe would you say put your father there or choose someone for your father?
Okay, that's another line of inquiry. Good. So instead of having a conversation with him, starting right away to constellate what he's talking about, yeah. Any other opinions here? Okay. So the right answer, if that would be like a multiple choice thing, the right answer is you say nothing. Absolutely nothing.
It was a trick question.
I know. No, you say absolutely nothing. You let it just in, out, in, out, in, out. Especially as more horrific the stories. Now he was not only locked in a cupboard, now the father sent neighbors to rape him, right? You hear things like this, you know? Why would he talk about, what is, you know, this is, if you would answer to that or even emotionally engage in that, you are not in a family consultation, you are in a psychotherapy, right? Nobody is helped with that, as we know, right? So nothing, absolutely nothing. It goes in and out, in and out. And if it goes more horrific, then you say stop. You know. All right. And then you start to work. Hmm? And of course, Rosemary, you're right. You might work with the father, but you might not. You know. It might not what information you receive, and it's might not what is needed, because often what the clients are talking about is a detour. Yeah. They want to lead you unconsciously astray. Because because there's this urge not to open up, although they won't help. Yeah? It's, you have to understand that the client in the situation, especially the ones who comes for the first time, yeah, and then in front of the group and everything, and then kind of his trauma takes over, and his emotional trauma and his physical trauma, and that's all of a sudden leading the conversation. Maybe he didn't want to talk about it at all. Maybe he came like with an issue like saying, oh, I have always an accident, like I have 4 car accidents already, or any kind of issue. Maybe he wanted to come with that. And then he's sitting on the chair, and all of a sudden he's only talking about his father and the abuse, right? That is what happens, This is why it's called the hot chair. But that doesn't mean that this is how the constellation goes. It is just his trauma that comes up, yeah? So it's better not, because any like, let's say both what Charlotte suggested or Rosemary is obviously something you would think about, but it both buys into what he was talking about, yeah? And you don't buy into that, yeah? That makes a good facilitator and not an average one. Charlotte, you go.
Yeah, and is it also because, they might come with a problem and they think the solution is the story that they've told,
Yes.
but it actually might be something else needs to shift before that happens. So they're like, I want to deal with the fact my dad locked me in the cupboard, but really we need the field wants them to work on something else first, not that. So it's actually like, yeah, it's really interesting putting it like that. Actually, it doesn't matter what they're saying out of their ego mind. Yes, they might have that trauma, but something else needs to happen first in order for that to happen another time,
It's exactly like this, Charlotte. It's exactly like this. And you are the one who has the overview, right? And the client obviously not. And then also be aware, if you do that in front of a group, the group will be shocked, The people like hearing somebody pouring out his petty childhood trauma, and you are not reacting to it, right? You need to be ready for that, yeah? Okay. And we come to that in the second half of today's module when we talk about leading the group, because there are ways to do it. Okay, so I'm a little bit sidetracked from the suggestive question, but so this is when you start a conversation, any kind of suggestive question, is starting a conversation. So what are the questions we really ask? So first of all, you can ask, why are you here? Of course, right? Why are you here? you might, and then they might say, oh, I had 4 car accidents in the last 10 years, and this is really a pattern, and I really want to get out of it. And then you say, great, let's start with that, that's fine. But if he starts, oh, in the first accident, I was there, and there was with me, and I had these injuries, and then, if he starts to tell stories, you have to stop them. That's the difference. In information, yes. A story, no. No storytelling. You have no time for that, honestly. No, there's more at stake and more important things to do. So if you don't ask a suggested question, you normally avoid also any storytelling. You are neither an authority nor a friend when you're facilitating, right? Why do I say that? Why are you not an authority? You know the most from everyone in the room. What do you think? I know you're thinking something, Rosemary. I I saw you thinking.
Maybe with the authority, you would feel superior.
Yes.
And as a friend, in a way, you don't get respect, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's exactly what it is. Remember, the helper is at the bottom of the field, right? At the bottom of the family system, next to the client, having the family system in view, right? So is exactly what Rosemary said. If you feel like you're an authority, then the client would be underneath you, right? Obviously. Not malicious, not because you have malicious thoughts. It's just natural. You are creating a hierarchy. That's all you do, you know. So you don't consider yourself to be an authority neither. Yeah. You're a helper. A helper has a very unique place. Hmm? And then you're not a friend, of course, because a friend always wants the best for the other friend, right? A friend wants something, wants, desires, and we don't do that when we are facilitating. We have no desire for somebody else. Hmm? And this might be really the second one, the friend thing might be really tricky when you start to work, and obviously you work with friends and family. Like this is the people you can gather. Okay. And that is a great practice because when you're sitting on a chair and your friend is sitting next to you, you don't know them. You don't know them anymore. You're not assuming anything. You don't know the history. You don't know nothing. I still have that. I have clients for years and years and years. I know them so well and we are friends. No? And then they sit in a workshop next to me and I'm not assuming anything. They are new, brand new. Right? So, what are we doing with difficult clients? You can have clients that are really kind of trying to get you, with the way they talk or behave or whatnot. The good trick is to imagine them as a 4-year-old child because they're just naughty. That's all they are. And you physically see them on your chair as a 4-year-old toddler being really, really annoying. Rosemary.
Just give me an example. What do you mean with annoying?
Okay. So, there could be anything, something that rounds you up. Somebody who is triggering you. Some you know where your soft spots are. Right? So he could be, for example, demand something from you. Like so um so so saying something like how long have you done that? or what else can I think of? Well, I haven't had one in a long time, but oh, I remember when I was also in the training group with Bert and Sophie Heilinger. There was one in the group, and he just got up and was yelling at us as a group, at her, at Sophie Hellinger, was saying, this is unbelievable. You know, everything can happen. They are just random persons and everything can happen. And we talk about that then a little bit. But I just say, if you have an annoying client or difficult client next to you on the hot chair, be assured he needs to be there. You need to be there. You're both in the right place. You just need to have you just need to have a method to not get in defense, not let yourself be wound up. And this is by looking at him as if he would be 4 years old. You don't need to say that. You don't need to say, just by imagine that, you will change the whole energy.
If you look at him as a 4-year-old, then aren't you like the dynamics becomes like you are superior and he's not?
Not really, because you're not the parent.
Okay.
You're not the parent of the four. You just see a random 4-year-old throwing a tantrum. That
But
makes you.
even with children, we somehow feel we are bigger and we need to take care of them or we need to discipline them. I mean, even if they're not your children, you have that feeling of, oh, I'm smarter than you, right? It
Okay,
comes.
Kaisha, if you have this feeling, don't imagine them as a 4-year-old. You need another strategy. You need another strategy, right? But if you can look at a child in the supermarket with the mother and he's showing a tantrum and you're not, you're not think, oh my gosh, this mother should, you know, punish him or something. If you just, observe it and think that's funny, then you can use this image. Yeah.
And also the balance, what about the balance between a facilitator and the client? Because you said when we talk about orders of love,
Yeah.
it's equal, right? Is it equal balance or
Yes.
equal?
It is
Okay.
equal. Very good question. Thank you, Kaisha. It is equally balanced. Yeah. It is an
Right.
equal balance. You are both at the same level. This is why when you picture yourself as a helper next to the client, not above, not behind, next, makes it like the lake situation, makes it balanced. Because why is it balanced? He's coming, you help him, he's paying. Boom, balance. Yeah.
Right.
Nobody gives and the other takes, and um, there is no what can I say, a remuneration or something. That's it. Very good, very good. I'm glad you have listened so well to the videos. Great. Okay, well, we lost Reem. I hope she comes back uh, in a few minutes, maybe the internet. So, um, the feeling of resistance in the client, that is what when you feel, oh, the client is resisting me. He doesn't want to take from me, he's kind of not, completely open to what you say or what you want him to do or something. A resistance. You can feel that clearly. Then you have to not look at the client. You have to look at your own expectations. Yeah. That is the magic here. Right? So not to feel the resistance of the client, but to look at your own expectations. Why are you expecting the client to be more open? You know, because the client, if it's not somebody who's throwing a tantrum, can be who they are, right? There is no judgment about that, right? And if they don't want to take from you because they're resisting, then that's it. They don't take from you. They don't benefit. That's fine, you know. But if you get agitated because you feel this resistance, that means that you expect them to be open and take from you. Yeah. And we don't want to be in a place where we desire anything for somebody else. Mm. So how practically, how do you work with feel the resistance of the client? You just relax. You just take a couple of deep breaths into your belly. And then you say to him, so do you want to work or not? Easy. No? because he can still say no, or probably not. And they say, fine, go back to your, go back to the group. But I never had that. As soon as you say, not from a state of confrontation, but you have breathed breath through it, and you had let go of your expectation. Then you ask a neutral question: do you want to work with me or not? The choice is yours. And if you don't take anything I say, then I assume you don't want to work with me. you know, and that's his choice. And normally they say, yeah, of course I want to work, and then they get really, really nervous that you dismiss them or something like that. And then say, okay, let's start. And what do you think? How do you start with a client who is resisting to you? Whom would you put there?
Their mother.
Rosemary?
Now I would say the father.
That's the correct answer. The father. Why is
Ugh.
that?
Why is it the father?
What is the mother standing? Oh, actually, coming to that. I maybe haven't mentioned that before. The father, because the teacher, if you
Yeah.
will, is representing the father. So if somebody has difficulties
Ah,
in a teacher relationship, he's resenting the father. And that is a little bit similar to the facilitator. Of course, he's not a teacher, but it's, similar.
yeah.
So there would be an issue with the father. So you would
That
say to him,
perceived authority.
yeah, exactly. So you would say to him, okay, let's work when they want. Choose a representative for yourself and your father. Boom. That's it. Easy as. You don't need to let him talk any longer. You don't even need to listen why he came for. Right? He has already showed, the field has already showed the issue. Right? Okay. Okay. What else do we have on our chart? Dealing with expectations of the client. Yeah. So now we had like clients who came for the first time, and now we are looking at what is about clients who come many, many times to family constellations, right? They have expectations, obviously, because they know how it goes and how it's supposed to go, often in their opinion, right? And what are we doing with them? So, first of all, you could acknowledge that they had many constellations before, right? Because you would know him, because you would have seen them before. So you would say, glad to see you again, or here you are again. You have come a long way, or something like that, with lots of family constellations. So they had admitted that they had that, what they feel is valuable, right? So that's a really good point to start. And then you would say, what can we help you today with? You would say that because he has come many times before, right? And then the client feels acknowledged. Yeah. And the expectations are kind of shifting from expectations. So the client thought the expectations are towards a specific topic or an issue to look at. But through this intro that you had with the client, where you were leading the client, you have acknowledged him and shift his expectation to what he really wanted, being acknowledged for what he has already worked on so much. Yeah. See how you lead the client with these little um, sentences or words, or where you steer them out of their expectations into where you want them into a relaxed state, hmm, where they can work without expectation. Um, you can also change the position of the client if something is not that they sit on your left side. That's not what I mean. It is like when you are in a constellation. So now we are kind of, all the talking has been taken place and you are actually in the constellation, you can ask the client to sit somewhere else. That is a really good tool. A, that he gets out of the hot chair, he looks at his own constellation from a different perspective, which is really helpful often, especially if you have the impression the client is a little bit closed up, you know, in his constellation, and you need to get him out there. So if you want to leave the client, you can also suggest to change positions. Sit on another chair, because they are representatives in the constellation, so they are free chairs, right? So they can move, they can sit somewhere else. Also, I often say, look, sit in this chair, you can see them better because they are all facing, you know, the backs to them, and then I could see the client cannot connect with what's going on because there are lots of bags of people. And then I said, sit here, then they can see everybody from the side, for example. No. So changing a position is a valuable method to lead the client as well. We talked about absent clients. That's what I said. So you can constellate for an absent client, but only if you have been talked about and that's what they want, right? So what would you say then? Would you ask a representative to sit on the chair for the... That's actually something I've never done. Maybe I do that next time. Ask a representative to sit on the hot chair, not for themselves, but for a client who's absent. That would be something. Otherwise, you just leave the chair empty because you know the topic, you know what the client wants to look at, and you say, okay, we are doing a constellation with an absent client, so I choose, you know, I choose the grandfather paternal side or something like that to start with, because you know that's where you want to go. And you also don't shy away from experimenting during a constellation, right? There is nothing shipped in stone. And when you think you need to lead the client through doing something unexpectedly, then do that. You know, don't be shy to experiment. Yeah, clap in your hands or whatever. Or Bert Hellinger has often done a really massive clap on the back of either representative or the client, which kind of gets them out of wherever they are stuck in, which I also do sometimes. It's really helpful, but be careful with that when you begin. Needs to be, you know, otherwise it comes over probably a bit violent or something. But but that is another, you know, you can experiment. You can experiment with, I don't know, getting out of the doors. Just things come to my mind. Doing something unexpected, and then see if something changed. Of course, you come back if you do that immediately. So now we come to our exercise. Before we go on the break, I would like you to take this exercise leading the client. You have two members per group, so we have two groups. I put you in the breakout room. One of the group is the helper and the other is representing a client. You can represent yourself, yeah? So just stay yourself. You are the client as yourself. Now, what are you doing is you're practicing waiting in silence for 1 minute. And I put on the timer so you can see the timer on your screen running, so you can see when 1 minute is up. Practicing waiting in silence. You don't need to look in the eyes. This is not an eye contact like exercise. It is, you can look down, maybe even close the eyes. I'm not sure about closing eyes. Maybe keep them half open and just connect with your client as a helper. Just connect. Feel what is his issue? What could, where can you help with? What does the family system want you to do? Something will come up. And then when you have this 1 minute where you're not talking, then you ask the client about the issue. If you have during this minute gotten information from the field, yeah, something, let's say again the father came up from the client, something you all of a sudden think, oh my gosh, what's going on with the father? Then you would ask the client, what's going on with your father? Yeah. And you will immediately see if the client is resonating with it. They will say, like, cry or break out or something, because it's exactly what it was. Or they say, I don't know, nothing. And then you ask him, okay, what do you want? What do you want to look at? Yeah. And then I would like you to lead a brief conversation with everything we have talked about, how you would talk to a client if you would sit in the hot chair. Yeah. And the client is doing a little bit, you can do something naughty, something out of the teaching content I just told you, to make it a little bit more challenging if you want to. Yeah. Okay. And then you have probably, let's say, 5 minutes each. So after 5 minutes, you would swap. So you have 1 minute waiting in silent, and then you have 4 minutes to lead the client, not to have a chit chat with your training buddy. That's not what we do here. You lead the client. You're interviewing the client in a way that you can start after this 4 minutes with a constellation. Yeah? And I would like you to suggest and take note, how would you now start the constellation? Whom would you choose? You're not doing it. This is not a practice constellation. You are just deciding what to do. And you write it down so we can talk about that later, right? So after this 5 minutes being with your client, or let's say 4 minutes, doesn't need to be, then you decide, okay, I'm starting with a representative for the client, for the mother of the mother, and for the mother of the mother of the mother, if you think there is an interrupted movement towards the mother, for example, right? But you're not doing it, you're just writing it down, and then you're done. And then swap. Yeah, and the timer will run, so you will see when the 5 minutes are up and when you can swap. And then 10 minutes later, I bring you back. All good? And I let the randomizer choose the groups, okay?
Maya, I'm really sorry that I left earlier. I had my boss calling me, so I had to drop the call. So I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean
No
to be
worries.
rude.
No worries, no problem.
That was
Okay,
difficult.
everyone, huh?
That was difficult.
Okay, let's talk about it. Reem, you start.
Because what you feel and what then again, it's as you said, like not what you feel and what the client comes with is not necessarily the same, which is fine because you ask, like, is there something with your father? For example, the client says, no, actually, I was thinking about my brothers. And then, like, brothers, did we actually do something about brothers? Usually it's either like a success is the face of the mother, addiction is the father, and then interrupted movement is usually towards the parents. And so the client's issue is like having issues with the siblings that they don't speak to each other anymore, for example. So then I was like, okay, my best guess is put a representative for the siblings, for the client, and then a third one for the entanglement in case like it was from an ancestor, like something that was passed on, it wasn't at their level. But I wasn't really sure if that was the best
Okay.
thing to do.
Oh, well, that's a good start. So Rosemary, is this something you wanted to look at, your brother?
This would be the one. Reem asked me if there was something with my father, and I wouldn't say there was anything with. And I came up with the brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. No, that's a good start. So, Reem, you found it difficult, but you came to a result.
Yes, that was the result that we got to, yeah.
Yeah, and that's great. You start with client, brother, and a third person. Yeah, that's exactly how you can start.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Great. Very good. And the other way around, Rosemary, you were the helper?
Yeah, I was a helper and I asked her about her sisters. And then there was nothing with her sisters, but in a way, Reem said she has difficulty or has to overcome her panic in a way to talk public or loud or in front of other people. So in a way, I would maybe put up more Reem and her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I also noticed in a way, it's very easy to fall into traps. You see, in a way, I played a little bit the naughty client. And then in a way, Reem started to defend herself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I would do exactly the same, you see.
Yeah.
And also, the other thing was...
What did you say? What did you say? What was the naughty bit?
Do you think you can help me? Do you think this will, in a way, solve my problems or something like this?
Very good.
and Reem said something like, yeah, we will see what the magnetic field will bring up and more. And then in a way...
Well, that was good, good answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like it's first... if I really was a naughty client, in a way, I would have the better of her, I think, because she would buy into it. You see, in a way, not instead, in a way, just ignoring me a little bit. She did really well.
Yeah, I think that was a really good reaction. So let's see what the morphogenetic field comes up with. That is a very good answer.
She did really well.
Very good. Well, you had a hard time, Reem, I can tell. That was not easy. That's why you said it. It wasn't easy.
And I was not there when you talked about the traps. So I'm like, okay, this is a curveball.
But the good thing is you are here to have fun and practice. And this is where everything can happen, right?
And I was really nice with Reem. She did really well.
Yeah, great. So now, Rosemary, you were the helper and you worked with Reem. How was the 1 minute sitting in silence?
This was no problem because in a way we both knew we will do that.
Okay.
Maybe it would be different if you had a client who talks nonstop.
Yeah. Well, you're not saying shut up, of course, to your client. Probably not.
Yeah, I think we'll also we'll just politely say let's just see how the field how
exactly
it's working out. Just have 1 minute silence.
That's it. Yeah. Let's have just yeah. That's what I would say. Yeah. And then how was the 4 other minutes?
Okay, so for us, I think for me as a helper, I kind of felt her grandmothers, both her grandmothers present while I was in the 1 minute of silence. And then when I asked her, is it to do with your grandmother? And she said, actually, it's my mom. Her mom's not well and she's worried about the mom. And I think I started giving advice. I think I started making some suggestive comments and saying, oh, I don't know, what did I say? I think I said, she said her mom's not well and she can't do much because she's away. And so I started saying, you shouldn't feel guilty, or I don't know.
That was a trap. Yes, very good.
And I'm like, oh shit, I think I'm not supposed to say all this. Am I? And then I'm looking through my notes. But yeah, I think if it's to do with the mom not feeling well, maybe get the grandmom inside and yeah, and also I felt both the grandmothers. So maybe I don't know why I was feeling the dad's mom as well. Maybe there was some connection there, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I started becoming a therapist and started offering advice, which I shouldn't have done. But yeah.
Well, that's so good that you realize that. That's great.
What am I doing? I mean, we shouldn't be saying all this, right? Then I started looking through my notes.
That's good. No, that's all good. So you came to the conclusion that you would start with a representative of her mother, and both grandmothers.
Yeah, sort of. but she said maybe it's just her mother, but I felt the other grandmother, maybe it's a
Definitely,
woman.
you should go with that.
Yeah.
Because you can't go wrong. Where you can, if in a constellation, if the grandmothers have no impact into the constellation, then that's fine. That they don't have to have an impact, but they could. So definitely a good way to start. So, and I really like that you immediately picked up on this therapy thing.
Giving
Yeah,
advice.
yeah. Very good. Very
She was
good.
telling me her whole thought process and saying it at the same time, and then saying, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be telling you my thought process." So I was like, "It's fine." It was funny.
Very
But
good.
I think from my point, when I was Keisha's helper, I she said it so succinctly that she was worried about her daughter. And then I thought, shit, what am I going to say now? She said it. She's not rambling. There's nothing to hold her back from. And I said, and how do you feel about your mother? And then I thought, and then we both made the thing of like, I was immediately getting into like the emotions of her mother, which was I panicked, I fell into the trap when really no one could, shouldn't be saying, "And what are your feelings about your dad? What happened when you were, and I just started going
So
down
you
a
were
road
not
to sort of,
happy with the
and then
daughter.
she
You
said,
needed.
No, but the funny thing is, Charlotte actually stopped and asked me, "This is a real story, right? Are you role playing, or is this a
Yeah.
real story?"
I was like, I need the context. I was like, is this true? Are we doing real stuff
I
just
said, "Yes,
quickly?
this
And
is
I'm
a
back in
real
the zone.
story."
Yeah. So we had to have a bit of clarity. But yeah, so she was very succinct in her, what was happening for her. And I was thinking, like, should I have said anything? Because my immediate thought was bring in her mother, because she was having difficulties with her daughter. And the thing was about, wanting to make sure the daughter was okay. The daughter's having a difficult time. And I just felt like there was a thing about her and the daughter relationship. And all I could think of was bringing in her mother to start and just getting going. And I don't know if that's the right thing, but that's just what I felt like I would do.
So how was your leading the client conversation going? So when Kaisha said, "Okay, it's about my daughter," what was then? How did you lead her to elaborate?
Well, that's the problem, because I said, "How was your relationship with your mother?" And then we
Okay, you
both
didn't.
thought I shouldn't have asked that. And then
Okay.
I didn't say anything else. And
Yeah.
should I have just said, "Tell me more about your daughter"?
Yeah.
You did that, Charlotte. You said, "Tell me more," and then I think I went on a rant for like 2 minutes, telling you,
Okay, fine.
"Oh, like she's having a hard week and da 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 da," and then we realized that we were running out of time.
Okay, so maybe I did ask that. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
But I
if the
still
clients,
think I would bring.
yeah.
Hmm?
So do you think, who would you have brought in, Maya?
Yeah. So if she said it's about my daughter, it's about her daughter. I mean, that's no doubt about that. And so
Okay.
you would ask about the daughter. Yeah. You would ask what's the issue with your daughter. You might ask, does she have this for a while? When did it start?
Okay.
No?
So we're allowed to ask small probing questions to get
Yeah,
info.
if it's a real issue and not not like if it's not an avoidance. Mother, so I tell you that it's a life experience. Of course, you are young and you will all learn that over time. But mothers are always genuine about the children.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing you can rely on. If a mother is worried about a child, that's the issue,
mm.
right? That's 100% the
I
issue. Not
I
not about
wasn't
not that the
doubting her
child,
genuineness.
not that the child.
Say again.
So what I'm saying is, when a mother is worried about a child, it is the worry of the mother you are working with, right?
Mm,
You understand? So you would try to find out what is it that she's worried about, you know, and then you would definitely consolate the mother, like the client, the daughter, And you're right, maybe their own mother, but you don't know that yet, right? You don't know that
Okay.
really yet. But definitely her and the daughter, and then you would see the dynamic starts from there, and then you will pick a third person
Okay,
because you
cool.
normally want three. But no, I think you were on the right track. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, mm,
No, but
if you ask,
I think
yeah,
Maya, she was on the right track because she said, "How's your relationship with your daughter?" And I said, "I worry about her a lot." And my mom used to worry about me a lot as
here we
well.
go.
And I think there is maybe a
Yeah,
trend in our family where we worry about the kids. And so yeah, I think bringing in my mom would have been good to see how
yeah,
this relationship
yeah,
is, and maybe the pattern is repeating
yeah.
there. You know.
So that's exactly what I also think, Charlotte, that you have picked up the mother from the field, right?
You
So
picked
you
it up.
cannot ignore that, but you don't need to talk about the mother. You can just bring her into the constellation, and then you see. Hmm? So that was all good. I think you did all a great job with this exercise. So 2 thumbs up. Hmm? Now you go in your well-deserved break. Here we go. All right. So what is CIA stands for? You are a pack leader, right? I want you to remind you of that. You might know, might not know, I'm a big dog fan. I'm living with a pack of 5 dogs, and sometimes with 3 more foster dogs, and and I learned a lot from dogs. I learned a lot from dogs, and they know what a group is and how to lead a group. And I think also it's really good to go back to the basics and not be too much, going astray in psychology and. Uh. All right. So there are 3 attitudes I want you to remember and to learn to have. First, the trust of the pack to do the right decision is what a leader needs, right? Think of the pack as your group. The trust of the group to do the right decisions, right? That means your attitude is to be confident, not arrogant. Hmm? Confident because you know you can do the right decisions, as opposed to arrogant who think they can do the right decision. That's the difference. Yeah. So that is the C in CAI. Be confident, not arrogant. Now, what does a pack leader also need? The oversight to step in when the pack needs order. Yeah. So you need to know when the group is okay, even if it looks a bit chaotic, or when there is a tipping point and now they need order. Otherwise, everything goes to custard. That means to be assertive. Yeah, assertive, neither aggressive nor dismissive, assertive. Hmm? That's the A. And then the leader, the pack leader, needs the strength to lead through unknown terrain, right? That's what a pack leader does. That's why he's at the head of the pack. Yeah. That means that he or she is in charge. No doubt about that. No question asked. Everybody follows. Yeah. And that you can body language hmm, to be in charge of the group. Okay. So let's go through all of these step by step. Do we, or shall I? Okay, no, we go back to this chart. Hang on, why is it not coming up? Here we go. So go back to this chart. Now let's talk about confident. Being confident, not arrogant. How does it look like? How do you, when do you, how does it look to have the trust of the group? And how does it look to not have the trust of the group? What do you think? Just give me something. Yeah, Rosemary?
I think if we fear the group, this is not confident.
Very good. That's a very good point. If you're afraid, they can sniff that out. And they don't trust you anymore that you do the right decision. That's a good point. Very good point. Don't be afraid. What else makes you confident? Charlotte?
Well,
No? Reem?
well,
No,
yeah.
sorry. You go, Charlotte. Sorry. So a little bit time. The time is lagging. Okay, Charlotte, you go.
Using the tone of your voice to give clear direction and sticking with it, and when people follow that direction, you get that instant feedback that they trust you because they're doing what you're asking them to do.
Okay.
So just being really clear
So
and
voice, directive.
with
That's
your
a good
voice.
point. Yeah, very good point. With the way you choose your words and the way you speak. Very good. Reem?
I was just going to say, trust the process. So like, just be confident in whatever that you do, that this will be the best for the group, and not try to question yourself much.
Do not question yourself much. That's a good point. Yeah. Do never question yourself. That's actually an excellent point. Do never question yourself. Whatever you said is said. You have to own it. You can't take it back, right? That is confidence. Also, confidence is that you know you know. Confidence is that you know you have a good education, you are in the right place at the right time, that this knowing of it, yeah, that makes you confident as well. What makes you also confident is that you know step by step how to put yourself in the state of a leader, yeah, remember where you sit the client, remember of this empty glass situation, all of this, yeah. This is all making you confident. And therefore, the pack or the group will trust you. Let's talk about that again to own what you have said. Like if you're sitting on the chair and you have your intro and you say something that you consider stupid or even wrong, like you would introduce the family constellation in a way that you think about, oh, that was actually rubbish, what I've just said. Are you saying, oh, forget about what I just said, it's all rubbish? No, of course not. Right? You say, okay, let me put it in other words. Okay? This is confident. Okay. The oversight to step in when the pack needs order is to be assertive, not aggressive or dismissive. People who are losing it, yeah, they do either that, they are aggressive or dismissive, or submissive, if you will, yeah. But not more. Assertive means you let things happen because you don't want to control everything. You're not a control freak. But then when you know now the group is taking over the leadership, that is when you need to step in, right? And that is when you're assertive. You let things go the way because you want to see how it goes, and then you know exactly when is the turning point. Where's the turning point where you need to step in? Yeah, Reem, you go.
Your voice completely gone at some point.
I was gone again?
Yeah.
So bugger, I don't know why. What did you hear? What was the last thing?
The tipping point, and that's
the tipping point. Okay, so that was, I didn't say much after that. So that is when assertiveness means you know when the group is tipping and taking over the leadership, and that's where you call order, right? Otherwise, you would be like a control freak, controlling every step, That's not what you want to do. Yeah, it could be also arrogancy, and you also don't want it slide. So all of a sudden there is no leadership anymore. Yeah? A very interesting fact is there are such things as free or freedom constellations. I don't know, have you ever heard of that? Okay, that's a really weird thing. I have never witnessed it myself, but I have heard from people who have been at these events. Yeah. And what that means is that a family constellation takes place, and then everybody can just jump in. Like, let's say the constellation starts with mother, father, child, and then the facilitator says, whoever feels drawn or the need to be in this constellation, just go in, right? And then, let's say it's a group of 20, then all of a sudden 10 people go in. Would you know what's going on there? No, nobody knows what's going on there. And then and then they kind of, so there's no leadership, there's no facilitator anymore. The group has taken over. Yeah. So to avoid that, you would not do that. If you want somebody from the group because you want a, you're resonating with the group and you want a hint from the group, which is great, you ask, is one here who feels drawn to the constellation? And then one maybe say, yeah, me, I thought I was this from the beginning. And then you say, come in. And then you have one more person. And then you can keep the oversight, what you're having in front of you, what kind of dynamic, who's who, That's a different thing. If you ask everyone who feels drawn to you, this chaos has come because, everybody wants to kind of be part of the show, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. And I once watched a constellation and I found it painful to watch because the constellator just let it run without meaning to, and people were just chipping in like they were psychotherapists. Oh, and then the mother might think that, and I was like, it just got a bit ridiculous because everybody thought there was a psychologist, and I could see the person themselves were getting stressed because people were just assuming stuff, about gossip. It got gossipy and chit chatty.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. I just was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that actually quite a lot. I just can say whatever they do, it's not family constellation. They might name it like this, but it's not. Family constellation is only originated by Bert Hellinger in a very specific way, which I try to convey as close as possible in this training. Huh? And there are so many, it's like yoga, yoga is everywhere. Like some people use the word yoga for a fitness training, right? And other people use the word yoga for sex practices. And then other people use the word yoga for breathing exercise only. Yeah. So like the meaning of yoga has completely gone astray in the last 70 years or since Yogananda came to the West. Yeah. Same happens with family constellation. It got, astray. Like people had no proper training, just naming it like this, doing whatever they want. So they can do that. We are not concerned about that. We don't want to do that. We want to be a facilitator facilitating family constellation in the method of Bert Hellinger. And for that, you need to be assertive and step in before the group gets chaotic. This, however, is different from what you sometimes see. I don't know whether there's a video, but in his later work, Bert Hellinger has developed the multidimensional method. So in German, it is called the multidimensionale Vorgehensweise. Multidimensional method of his family constellation. And that was a little bit like this, but everyone was completely gathered and focused. There was no chaos and nobody could jump in and out. He would he would have a client and then he would say, okay, we are now applying the multidimensional method. And then he would ask 20 people from the hundreds of people he had normally, 20 to come, 20. And he might even pick them, or might just pick the first 10 female and the first 10 male. And then he would ask them, just place yourself in the room. And then he would sit down and he would watch them moving. You not hear me? Are you hearing me?
He set them down or what down? Like, no.
This is so bizarre. I really have no idea how to fix that.
I'm only concerned, to be honest, about the recording later, that we have to re-listen,
to
revisit this
replay.
later.
Let me just see if I can change anything with my mic. I just tested it. The mic is okay. I have absolutely no idea why it would cut out. So sorry for that, but we have to play along with it.
That actually is better, right, when you were just talking just then. So maybe.
Okay, right. Okay, did you hear me talking about the multidimensional method? Okay, so he would pick, or he would ask 10 female and male representatives to come in. Yeah, he has a client next to him. And then he would sit down next to the client and he would observe what they are doing. And he would ask them, that's important, not to say a word, right? Because then you're not coming in this therapy chit-chat situation what Charlotte just talked about, that they are starting to take over their assumptions and what they think they know, and no words. And he would sit up to 40 minutes with his client watching 20 people moving. Nobody knew anything, who that was, what they are looking at. But interestingly enough, through holding this space and with the intent and being the leader, as he is, the family system took over the group of 20 and directed them, right? And then after like this 30 or 40 minutes, you would see a strong relief. Yeah, so you would see that family member come together who has been apart. That is what we do, right? They would find each other. And then you would see in the client this sigh of relief that we are looking for. That something has happened, something has cleared. Yeah? He hasn't done that very often though. However, it is valuable, but it has nothing to do with what Charlotte just talked about and what I have seen, this freedom, constellations or whatever they call it. Nothing. He's very assertive when he does that. There is no disorder in the group at any point. Right? Okay. So, certainly, the third thing is be in charge, the strength to lead to unknown terrain. Where do you get the strength through? How does a dog get the strength? How does it look like a leader dog, an alpha dog who has the strength to lead through unknown terrain? What do they need to have that? Why are they accepted? Rim.
What do they need? I would say courage. Let's just have the courage and
Courage,
confidence
it's
in
very
themselves.
important. Courage is a good point. What else?
What do they need, or what are they demonstrating?
No, what they need. What is their attitudes? What do they need? What do they need to be in this position, to be able to lead? They need to have courage, definitely. What else do they need?
Knowledge.
Knowledge, and they don't know the terrain, but what do they know?
Well, the training, I mean, like they need to be confident in their training and knowledge that they can do it.
Yeah, that they have been there before, maybe. They have been before through unknown terrains, so they are not afraid of it. Yeah, like the other dogs would be. What else do a leader has to have? Rosemary, you know that. You know dogs.
Authority.
Where does it come from? We're kind of going in circle here. Where does it come from, the authority?
Is it like Source? Source just gives you the authority. You just know and you step up into it.
Well, that would be a little bit too easy.
A little bit too woo-woo.
Yeah, because It does. You might know it, but it maybe not. The group mate doesn't know it, and or the pack. So what I'm getting at is you need to be, first of all, very basic, healthy. Healthy. You need to be healthy. You have no alpha. You have no alpha dog leading through unknown terrain who is a cripple
Yeah.
or who is
Blind, leading
starving.
the blind.
Yeah, healthy. That's the first thing. You need to be healthy. Honestly, you need to look healthy. You need to be healthy. You need to eat healthy. We will talk about that in module 4. It is important to lead a group, right?
Maya,
That's the first thing.
you also mean mentally healthy, right? We need to be
Absolutely.
in a good frame of mind, not depressed or sad or anxious if you're leading, right?
Very good, Kaisha. That's exactly the point. Bodily, mentally, emotionally healthy. Yes, right? And then you need to be courageous. You need to have a courageous heart, to go where nobody ever went before. Of course, yes. And I know you all have it because otherwise you wouldn't be interested. You just need to find it if you haven't found it yet. That's all. But it's there, right? And then they will, like the dogs will follow because nobody is as strong as you. You are the strongest, right? And the weak will follow. That's it. And this is not a make-up strength. This is because, you worked for it. This is your goal. You want to be that kind of leader because you want to facilitate family constellation. This is your whole life. You become healthy, strong, courageous if you're not already. You find this courage in yourself. You go through other unknown terrain before you lead a group. You just do it for yourself. And that's why we do here as well. We are shedding all the obstacles in the way of your personal development as well. So you come out really strong on the other end. Okay, so when I wake you up in the night and say, what do you need to be to lead a group? You wake up and say CAI, right? So what is C?
Confidence.
Yes. What is A?
Assertiveness.
Assertive.
Very good. And what's I?
In charge.
Thank you. Well done. Okay, let's talk about group dynamics. Group dynamics is a term that you might have known before. It's a very well-known term in studying social behavior. A group comes together and they start a dynamic they wouldn't have without the group. Like what is a group first of all? A group is more than 3 people or more. 2 people are not a group. No, that's kind of a conversation. 3 or more people are a group. So when you have 3 or more people, a group is there, and now a dynamic just develops out of the people who are there. And this group dynamic is very specific and often repetitive. This is why we can study it, and this is why we can learn from it, right? And work with it with our groups. So, first of all, what are we doing if we allow discussions? You're sitting on your chair, you're talking about family constellation, and then you said, okay, everybody, what do you think about family constellation?
Well, you're allowing the focus to whiffle waffle. It becomes defocused. People are chit-chatting, they're bringing their ego in, they're bringing their perceptions, assumptions, and it actually just loses the power of it because people are bringing everyday crap into the morphogenetic field.
Very good. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So no discussions. Nobody discusses in this workshop anything. Nothing is up to discussion, right? However, if they ask you questions, of course you answer them. That's not a discussion, right? So if somebody asks a question, for example, how can that be that this morphogenetic field that we actually feel that? And you would answer, because it's a natural ability. We all can feel that. We can feel that, like we can feel the wind on our skin, and we can pick up thoughts and emotions from somebody. We can all. This is a natural ability. That's your answer. Now, if you would continue and say, yeah, but how? Like, as if you would have, like, to prove a scientific experiment or something like this, right? You would say, you will see that in our work. And this is the end of the question or the answer and not the beginning of a discussion. Yeah? Okay. So when you are in the right position as a leader, it's easy, to steer one participant in the right direction. That's not a problem. But what happens if one of the participants is commenting about somebody else? Ooh. I'm sure you had that, Charlotte.
Yeah, so I would say no questions or advice. Let's focus and come back to silence.
Yeah.
Because I've seen when people try and give other participants or representatives advice, or like you said, make comments, and it's just like not relevant, and it takes everybody out of focus. So I would just say, and let's breathe and come back to silent, to quiet, or something like that.
Okay. So I would
So
be
not
even
judge
more
them
strict.
for it,
I
but
would be
just
more
remind
strict,
them.
Charlotte. I
Say
would be more
again?
strict. I would be more strict.
Oh, okay.
Definitely. Because this is an absolutely no-no in a family constellation. We are not a meeting of the AAs there, right? Or anything like this. Everyone is coming with a deep-rooted issue. It's very serious, yeah? Very serious stuff. And nobody from the participants is in the position or has a capacity to fathom what's going on in somebody else. So absolutely, in a family constellation, absolutely no way. Yeah. So as soon as somebody said, and I had that occasionally, like somebody said after constellation, for example, sitting there, and then he said, "Oh, I have to tell you, when I was your father, I really felt weird about you, and you have to look, you have to look at your relationship with your things like that." You would absolutely say, "Stop, absolutely stop. We are not talking to each other here. If you have to address something, address it to me, yeah, and I decide if we talk about it or not, right? Because there are
I
two
watched
things going on. Yeah, you go.
I watched a very strange so my person that I worked with a lot in London, she was very strict actually, and she always said we don't discuss this after. So she was really good with the rules. But I went to a very strange one where afterwards the guy who was running the session asked everybody their thoughts and feelings on the constellation.
Ooh.
So some people were he was inviting people to say, yeah, I mean, when I was the mum, I just felt, like you just said. And it was really weird because it wasn't relevant. The constellation was over.
Yeah.
And people were chipping in with their kind of opinions.
Yeah.
And it just took it out of like a special place and went into like gossip again.
Totally. Very good, Charlotte. So that's exactly what happens if you let that slide, right? It's a group dynamic starting that you don't have control over. And everything that you have achieved before is kind of watered down, less than, yeah? The strength of a family constellation is within the movement of the souls that can be without a word. And we are not concerned what the people who are part of a constellation think or feel about it, ever. Other than in the constellation, when you know they are resonating with the field. Other than that, not interested. Yeah. Okay. So you can, if you sit down with a group, you can actually have like the 10 commandments of the family constellation workshop or something like that. And one would be do not comment towards another participant. It can go so far, I had that in one, that in the break, somebody who thought that they are very experienced and knows it all better, and you often have one like this, took one of the participants aside in the lunch break And I heard that, like, with one ear when I was passing by, and said, okay, so the way you have experience, you know what you can do? You can do this and this and this and this and this, right? And I took him aside and said, you can't talk to anybody about their constellation. This is intruding into their most intimate space, right? They are not here to open up so people can come in later and put load their shit on them, right? So this is very disrespectful. This is why you can say, and I do that in my workshops, if I have a lot of new people, do not talk about the constellations to anybody. Do not talk about your representation to anybody. And if you have something on your heart that needs to come out, say it to me. And I will decide if I pass it on or not. Yeah. And I think it's really good to stop this group dynamic in the tracks, to say that at the beginning, and don't let it come up. So there's another biggie. A participant wants to help another participant. So one is, so often somebody is resonating from the group of who is sitting on the chairs, who is observing, yeah, very strongly with the field, with what's going on, yeah, in their own rights, from their own issues. And then they either have a friend there, or they have a partner there, or they maybe even have just a stranger from the group. They get up and want to sit and hug them, right? Okay. So this is what they think would help them. In truth, it is very disrespectful of the space of the one who has this relief, right? And hugging somebody when they have an emotional relief is the worst thing you can do, because you're stopping it, and you make it about yourself, and you're not respecting them for what they are going through. You're making it about yourself. How I can help, right? And you don't want to make it about yourself. It's all about that. It's not your, it's absolutely not your business, right? So when I see somebody doing that, I say, don't, go back. In the constellation, I just watch it and say, go back on your chair. Don't do that, right? However, if there's a couple and they come together and they sit together, you might be a little bit more, allowant, but you have to decide that in the moment, because they're used to do that, and then you come and say no all of a sudden. So I don't know how, you need to handle that from the situation where it arises. But generally, if a participant goes to another participant and wants to help, send them back to their chair. Be aware that every relief everybody has in the whole group is valuable and for themselves. Yeah. When your client has a relief next to you on the chair, which happens quite frequently, right? Are you going to hug them? Of course not. You sit with them and you hold the space, right? At most, you can reach the tissue box and offer a tissue. That's the most you can do. Yes, Rin.
Can you offer them water?
Offer what?
Or is that also water? Or that would also maybe like calm them down?
Yeah,
like...
no, you don't want to do that. They can drink water later when they went through all of this.
Afterwards,
but,
okay.
Yeah, later. But why they have this relief, what you are helping with and the group can help with holding the space and respecting their space and allowing them to go through, right? Because every interaction, like pity, is like pitying somebody, or hugging or holding hands or whatever they come to, or just staring at them, is taking away and make it about yourself. My emotions, what I think it's needed, how I want to help, and that's not holding the space. So I talked about that couple friends hugs. So that's what's my take on that is. Then you have another group dynamic, which is distractions. So somebody probably gets up and I don't know, and I had that, runs around, just runs around, couldn't sit still, right? What is it? It is about them. They make the constellation about themselves, right? That's behind it, right? And they might say, oh, I need to move. I feel that's important. I need to move. And then you just say, look, just sit back. Just go out the door, move there, or go back onto your chair, right? This is not part of a family constellation. That's all ego or unsettled mind or unfiltered emotion issues, right? Every movement that is fast in a family constellation is not guided by the field. So that is your measurement. If somebody walks or runs, walks fast or runs, or speaks fast or speaks at all, more than one word, it's not coming from the field. So distractions, you are the leader, CAI are not allowed. Because this person who has a constellation for them, it's all for them. This is the important person in the room. Yeah? And nobody is allowed to make it about themselves. So that can happen. That's the worst case of a group dynamic, is that the group turns against the participant or you even. Worst thing, right? So let's talk about the group turns against the participant. Like, let's say there is one who is annoying. Everybody thinks that, in a way, and then all of a sudden something happens and you open up the group with, I don't know, one discussion, and all of a sudden they are all up all about this person there. Of course, needless to say, you stop it in the tracks and you say, this is not about him or her. This is not about him or her. This is about the group. This is about the constellation. This is about the client, not about a particular participant, right? So you just say stop. However, what is if the group turns against you? It might be a bit trickier, huh? Well, first of all, you have lost CIA, right? CAI, I mean. You have lost CAI. Somehow, somewhere. Doesn't matter, right? So what do you do? What do you do? Now you need to know where the group stands for. What do you think? Right?
To be honest, it's not an answer. Like, because when you say the group turning around you, against you, the first thing that comes to my mind is the worst situation is if it's a victim perpetrator, and the victim is the client, for example, and then we say we belong together, or like, and they don't, it could be shocking for them. And like, this is, I think, where people could turn against you. It's like, what's wrong with you? Like, how could you say this? Like, I was hurt, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, it could be. That's a possibility. Yeah, Reem, that's a possibility that you do something unexpected, and then they are like, what are you doing there, right? Yeah, that's a possibility. Rosemary?
I think it has to do with your mother.
Right, that's the right answer. So the group stands for the mother. The teacher or the leader stands for the father, right? So now if the group is turning against you, what do? You say, I do another constellation. And you don't need to tell anybody, but you would choose two representatives, one for you and one for your mother.
So question.
So you're quasi working through it. Yes, Charlotte.
Yeah, would you work through it, or would you just ask them, hey, do you want to work or not? So are you
No,
still,
I
would
would
you
take
still
it as a
stay in
chance. Yeah.
constellation mode?
I would use it
Okay.
as a chance to look at your issue with your mother without letting them know. We call that a not a secret, what is the English term? Eine verdeckte Konstellation. covered. Can you say that? A covered constellation? Where they not,
Covert.
huh? Where they
Do
don't
you mean
know.
covert?
Like a cover,
Yeah.
no, it's so a constellation where the participants don't know where it's about. How would you say that in English?
Mm.
It's not covered.
I
Confidential?
think covert.
Oh, yeah.
Say it again.
Covert operation,
I
we would
only
say,
heard
or a
COVID.
covert thing. Covert.
Covered. Covered? Yeah, okay. Like a, okay. So this kind of constellation, would that be? So you would say nothing. You would say, okay, let's work. And you would choose a representative for yourself and one for the group, which is your mother. And then you would see and the group will automatically quiet down because you are working with them. They are just representing your mother. And this is your chance to pick that up. So take that as a chance, yeah? Take that as a chance to work through another layer of a mother issue that you have not touched yet, maybe the deepest you will ever go. This is why the group is there, why the workshop, why they turned against you. This is your chance. Yeah. And then you just work with them. You facilitate your own constellation, if you will. You have a representative, and you would not say, and then you would ask them when you see that how the dynamic is coming together. Then you would ask them, as always, to thank you and sit down. And then you would sit down, and I guarantee you, the group is quiet. Nothing will come up again because you work through it. They are just representing your mother. Yeah. So what you don't want to do is when the group turns around you with like an example, like Reem said, or telling you what to do or something like that, right? You are not answering to that because you are not the one to answer to these questions. You are working with it. If it's a group, right? If it's a genuine question, why did you do that? Yeah, then you can answer it. It's a question. But if you feel emotionally the group is turning against you with some kind of hatred, if you will, yeah, then you work with it. You cannot talk it through and you cannot make it go away. Other than you stop the workshop, you can say, okay, the workshop is finished. You can back off. You may do that with your mother too, or used to do that. So, so that's your chance. The group is the mother, the teacher, the leader is the father. Okay. So now how do we lead the representatives? So first of all, you need to prepare them, right? Especially people who are the first time on a workshop, they need some preparation. So my way to prepare representatives is to say them, the good news is you don't need to know anything and you don't need to do anything. So there's really nothing you need to prepare for. Nothing. You are just there, and whatever happens, happens, and let me decide if it's from the field or not. You don't need to think about that. Because often representatives come for the first time and who are not used to be connected in any way, shape, or form to higher levels of existence, let's put it that way, they think they cannot not think. They think when they are in a representative role, they think it all up. They can't imagine that they never think, right? So you can say to them, that doesn't matter. You might think you think, but I decide if you think or if it's an information from the morphic field. And that makes it then, so they cannot do anything wrong, right? I always remember this constellation that I made in a free talk as a demonstration, which demonstrations never work. It's always a real constellation. Where there was there were lots of they were just curious. They came with a partner. They may even didn't want to be there. And then they have been chosen as a representative. So one of these men come up and he was quite embarrassed, coming up like in a group of 30 or what it was. And then I said, okay, stand there, and then somebody else, and then I asked him after a while, how do you feel? And then he was almost blushing, and he said, I feel nothing. And he was like, oh, let me go, let me sit down. I can't do this. I feel nothing. I'm so useless. I can't feel. And then I said, oh, that's great. That's great. That's good. That's the information. And then we went through the whole constellation, one after the other, and they all felt nothing. And mind you, of course, that was the issue, right? The issue was the disconnecting in the male lineage of the family. Yeah? And that he felt nothing was a genuine input from the field. Well, you would never thought it would be. Yeah. So you have, as always, trust the field. That's the information you get. This is where you work with. Yeah. And once they have realized that, and this is a case where you actually talk about that after the constellation, because everybody can learn something, especially the new ones, that they don't need to fear to represent, that there will always be an information coming through, regardless of if they think that's an information. That's not what we don't need them to decide. You the facilitator, you decide. So you just ask them what it is, and then you decide, is it from the field or is it's always from the field? But they don't know that, yeah? So they are not in the stress of needing to decide, oh, I think I'm just thinking about it. They just tell
Sorry
me.
to stop you, Maya.
Hey?
Your voice is gone. Sorry to stop you and to interrupt you, but your voice is really...
Ah, that's so bad. I can't believe it. Okay, can you hear me now?
So if you talk slowly, like if you talk slowly, it gives us a chance to try to make up what the words were. But when you speak too quickly, it becomes harder.
Oh, I see. Okay. Maybe I can actually, let's see. I may see something which I can change. You let me know if this happens again. Yeah? Okay. So, what did you miss? Oh yeah, we just go ahead. Okay. So, this is the preparation of the representative saying, you don't need to do nothing, you make yourself available through participating in the constellation, and everything else is up to me. I'm the facilitator, I'm the leader. You don't need to decide anything. Yeah. That also means if he says nothing, you're not poking your finger in the wound and say, come on, there must be something. Or be suggestive and say, don't you not feel a little bit angry? Or something like that, Okay. Be always clear in your role as a facilitator and respect, everybody's space, and don't be intrusive. So then also leading the representatives, the next question is, you always ask your client if they want to be represented. Because some clients, they want to represent themselves, which is great. So that's preferable. If the client doesn't need a representative, great. Yeah. But most of them want to see. They want to see how they look, so to speak, in a family constellation. So they want to be represented. So they have a choice. In my view, they have a choice. And then often, when you go through the constellation and you come to the peak of the constellation, you would swap the client with the representative so that the client can do the last step themselves, which has a greater impact. Yeah. However, they don't need to. The representative can go from A to Z. That's also good for the movements of the souls. You can guide a representative into position. You can let the client guide the representatives into position or not. Up to you. Neither, no, it's all good. There's, you do that in the moment. Whatever feels right is the right thing to do. Yeah? So guiding in position means that you ask the client to put the hands on the shoulders of the representative from behind, and then gently move them, slowly and gently move them in the room, where you think that is the position. It's just where it feels right? And turn them around where they look. And the client can do that, you can do that, or you ask the representative to position themselves. So, all these options. You need to make sure the representatives are focused and collective when you start with the constellation. And I like to do that by asking them to take a deep belly breath, at least 1, 2, or even 3. Close the eyes just for this moment. Yeah. And when they then open, when I say open your eyes, that they are not looking at any people. Yeah. They are not looking at their spouses in the room or at somebody in the, that they are looking at a neutral spot at the wall or the floor or something, and then slowly decide where the gaze goes. Yeah. This is a good point because then you know they are focused and collected. So this is what I meant. Ask them not to look at each other at the beginning because you might end up in giggling and stuff like this. Because they are not focused and collected, they are not connected with the morphic field, and then all of a sudden they feel weird about standing with a friend in this, situation. Yeah. And to avoid that, it's good if they don't look at each other. That's a very important point. You lead the representatives in to not talk to each other in the constellation. No, they should not talk to each other. If somebody has to say something, they should say it to you. And then you decide if you want them to repeat it or not. Because we only want to work with our strong words. We do not want any chit-chat, right? And the representatives often, especially when they are new, they don't express what they want to express in strong words. They express it in descriptive words. And we don't want that. So they can say it to you so you know what dynamic is going on. And then you rephrase it and you ask them, okay, say yes. Or you decide that's not important and you say, okay, don't say anything. Yeah. So important, the dialogue is only with you. Very important. Also, they should not just talk if they feel like talking. They should raise their hand, and then you would go to them and let them whisper in your ear or with very very small voice tell you what they want to say. Yeah, before you even so you can decide what it is. You can decide if you want to take it or not. So if giggling or chatting or anything else is happening in the space of the constellation, you go back to focus. So you would ask them to close their eyes, take 3 deep belly breaths, and when they open their eyes, not to look at each other. Yeah. So that happens if especially young women come together, and then all of a sudden they are in the same constellation and they start to giggle and all of this. Yeah, but you can stop. That's you don't Worst case is you have to replace one. Of course, that's also an option, but it's normally not necessary. Most of the time it's fine if they just are guided back to collect. Yeah. So what else do we have? Changing the positions is also something to lead the representative. For example, the client wants to change the position of the representative. Do we want that? Do we want the client to decide? What do you think? Yeah, Reem?
I mean, after positioning them at the beginning, I don't think they should, because the representative would feel better or connected to the field where they're supposed to be looking at and how they're facing, I think.
Correct.
So they have
That's
the chance
correct.
at the beginning, but not later. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. And that is the difference between a group session and a one-on-one. Because in the group, you have the other people who decide on movement and what they say. So the client has no say anymore. In a one-on-one, that's slightly different because we are working with objects. Yeah? So you need the client to work with you, if you will, on that. Yeah? Is the voice better, by the way? Just checking in. It's not better. Okay. So what happens if the representatives want to change the position? Is that okay?
Maybe if they ask you and say, hey, and you could decide if they change.
That's a
So
very
I'm
good
feeling
point.
very strict. Yeah. Not just like willy-nilly, but if you say, okay, change to where you feel like you're being more comfortable, and
Yeah.
that could represent a different, that could show a different angle to the dynamic, but not
Yeah.
just free for all.
Very good. Exactly. So they have to raise a hand. You go to them. They will ask you very quietly, I think I want to move over there. And then you say, okay, go, but slowly. Or you say, stay here for a while because there's something going on. We want that later, right? Very good point. So, um, what is if the facilitator has changed the positions of the representatives? How do you feel about that? Marim?
Maybe you might want to suggest or feel like you want to suggest something. How would you feel to like look towards them, or how do you feel? Ask the representative, how do you feel like going closer? But you wouldn't order them to do it.
Okay, depends on how assertive you is, how much CAI you have. Yeah, that is depends on your group leading capability. So uh, just to say, but Hellinger never asked anything. He would just move them around, right? But it would be sparingly, right? Sparingly, because it's on spot. It's on spot, right? You would not want to move them around. You would ask them, how would you try? How about you try to go next to A, B, and Z and see how that feels? That's what you would say. And then they would probably move there and say, no, it doesn't feel better. And then you say, come back. It's an experiment, right? It's kind of when you're stuck and you really don't know, there is no movement, you don't know what to do. And then you think, okay, let's move somewhere. Let's just bring some movement in. And then they will resonate with it. They will tell you it's right or wrong. And if it's wrong, back, definitely. Don't force it, right? Yeah. So, but you're right, Reem, in general, you would not want to move a representative. You want to wait till the movement of the soul takes place. And how we actually move a representative, which you have learned last month, is with words. You would suggest them to say words. Yes, please, or thank you. And that will move, that will move the representatives, the souls. Yeah. Hmm? Okay, cool. So this is with changing the words. You always need to find the shortest way, the briefest, the spot-on way to express what the representative should suggest to say. And most often this could be yes, no, yes, thank you, and please, right? That is the shortest way to say something. And everything that a representative wanted, you can summarize that in these 3 words, in one of these 3 words. You just have to practice to hear what they really want to say. Yeah. That's just the way of practicing. And then you suggest, okay, so let's make an example. Somebody says, I really want to say to this, um, um, I really want to say to this person that um, I'm so happy that they are here, and I'm so grateful. And they will say, okay, say thank you. And then they would say thank you. And they would say, yeah, that is good. You would immediately see that. Yeah, that's it. So that was it. Or if you would take his words and you would say, suggest to him, say please, because you think that's the father, right? And then they say please, and often you say before they say, please, and then that's not the right word, right? So you kind of take it back. So you say, okay, forget about that. Let's try thank you. And you can try all 3 words because you only have 3, so it's not so hard. And don't be shy to do that. You know you're allowed to experiment. Nobody wants you to. You're not in a performance where you need to learn your script and you can't make mistakes. That's not how it works, right? You need to find the dynamics, and these are your tools. Yeah. Of course, ranting or anything else needs to be stopped immediately. Yeah. So when you say to somebody, please just say, please, mom, and then they say, oh, please, mom, I really, 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 really wish you were here, and blah, 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 blah. Of course, it needs to be stopped. It goes without saying. Very important, if the representative says something, they often use slang. Yeah? But we are not working with slang words in family constellation. Never. They have not the strength like the words of power. So instead of saying yes, they say yeah, or or has no strength, right? It needs to be yes. It needs to be yes. And that's other words as well, that when they come up, when they are sloppy or slang or not properly pronounced, this is all important. The words have to come clear to be powerful. What else do we change? Look at the body language and suggest the appropriate word for acknowledging what is, even if the representative says something else. So, easy example, the representative says, oh, I think I have some sympathy for this person, but you see he's clenching his fist, yeah? Always go with the body language first. Now, clenching the fist is obviously not liking somebody, right? So you would ignore what he said and say to him, I'm angry at you. And then he would say, oh, wow, yeah, that feels actually right. As if they wake up from a dream, Always go first with the body. When somebody's looking down and he says, I don't feel anything, nothing, I feel nothing. And say, I'm sad. And then they would repeat that, I'm sad, and they would say, oh yes, actually I really feel sad. Oh my gosh, I really feel sad. So this is how the words bringing out the movement of the soul. Yeah. So refer to your toolkit. Remember, you are a plumber. You have a box with tools. And in a constellation, you have your toolkit there, right? You don't need to skip out the toolbox and all 20 tools are on the floor, right? You know they are in the toolbox. You just need to grab the right one when you need it, right? That's all you do. And use the 3 magic words, and nothing can go wrong. Okay, let's quickly talk about the traps to fall into, and then we call it a day or a night. So the client takes over the lead, of course. That's a trap you can fall into, right? That means you're not assertive enough. You're not leading enough. The client should not have the lead. Yes, you're on one level with the client, and yes, you're there for the client, but you're helping the system. And the system wants you to lead, not the client. Yeah. So remember that. And use everything we talked about to bring him back on track. Yeah. Often, the client takes over the lead when they where they go astray with what they say, and they ask you questions that you follow, right? Don't you think so, or something like that? Then they took over the lead. If some words like this come up. The group can take over the lead, of course. It's kind of like the group dynamic. It's not turning against you, but it's kind of taking your role. Same thing. Go back to your CAI capabilities. Tap into this power of an alpha dog. think, think of this dog and be that dog. Yeah. One person of the group takes over. You actually have that a lot. In almost every group, I'm sure Charlotte has seen that. There's always one person who wants to sit on your chair. Right? They're desperate to lead the group. And obviously this is a, this is a trap, because it's easy to deal with that, with everything we talked about. But if you allow them, they will not stop. And they normally are very eloquent, and they're not nasty, they're not destructive. You think they have something to say. You almost think they have something to offer to you, right? But if you buy into that, the first instance, they will go on and on and on, right? So just stay in your leadership role and do not allow a group member to take over the lead, not even for a second. And then, of course, last but not least, what is if you make mistakes? You own it. Exactly. There's no arguing, there's no excusing, there's no you own it. It's done. It's already done when you did it. So you just go ahead. It's like falling down in a competition. You just get up and, run. There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. And by the way, there's no mistakes. There's only misunderstandings. So it cannot be that bad. Yeah. If you feel confused, that is a trap you can fall in. You're in a constellation, all of a sudden you have 7 people there, and you don't know what you're seeing. You have no idea what's next. And that's the most, that's what mainly happens for beginners in a family constellation, that you get confused. And this is why you have to come to the practice workshops where you work through this confusion, right? Because in every practice workshop, everybody who is facilitating the practice workshop, they all come to a point where they say, Maya, I don't know where to go from here, right? And that's normal. So this is where you learn it, how to overcome this. Yeah, this is important, because then when you have your training group, or when you have your friends and families, or when you have even later on your own workshop, then you know how to overcome that, right? And now, when you feel confused, focus on the nearest family member. This is the family of origin. Come back to the client and the mother, or the client and the father, right? Let everybody else be where they are and just go back and look at the dynamic to get a clear picture, right, of what you're seeing. You can also ask the other 5, sit down again. I'm now only working with you and your mother, because there's always work to do, right? And when you're confused and you think you can't, you're not getting anywhere, then just let the 5 sit and work with the mother, and that's it. And that would be the consolation, and that would be for the client a great relief, or the father. Yeah. Okay. So what does it mean leading with authority versus wisdom? It means that you let them do mistakes, not you, but the group. Yeah. You don't need to, punch on them all the time. You need to decide where to stop them and where to let them. So you let them go as long as you stay in the leadership. Yeah. And when okay, now it's getting out of hand, before it gets out of hand, then you stop them. That's wisdom. Otherwise, you make the impression as if you are like there with a whip, and control freak, and want to control everybody, and you might not have any participants in the next workshop because they don't feel comfortable with that. Yeah. So these are the fine lines that you will conquer. that is also one of the biggies, not closing a constellation at the right time. That's a trap. Because there's always a height, a peak of a constellation when there is a relief. Yeah? And you see the relief in the client or the representative of the client. There's a release. There is crying going on or screaming or whatnot. Yeah? And that is the peak of a constellation. That is when the constellation is over. Hmm? If you miss this point and you go on, then you're not gaining anything, maybe even watering down the constellation. Everybody gets tired, you know, and you just missed the point. What else do we have? Ah, that's another one. This is the opposite, wanting to finish a constellation early. Yes, Reem?
I just have a question. Like, did you just say that it is possible to water down the constellation? So it is actually possible to
Yeah.
make it worse.
Talking-
Not make it worse, but like not give them the full
Yeah.
Yeah.
To take away the strength, yes, you can do that. Yeah, you can take the strength away with talking about it, discussing it, you know, expanding it over what it's needed. Yes, you can. Yeah, and we want always to have the strongest impact we can possibly gain.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure. Wanting to finish a constellation is another trap to fall into. That's the opposite. You want to finish a constellation because you think either it's done or you think I'm not going anywhere, right? And that before you have reached the peak, right? So this wanting to do something is an important urge that you have to control or let go of, I have to say, let go of. Yeah? No. The constellation can be as long or as short as it wants to be. You need to see the peak of it. You need to come to the peak of it. And that's it. And then it's over. So overlooking an important fact or person in constellation is also a trap to fall into. Let's call it a mistake. So you own it. You're not going back. You're not saying, oh, now everybody sit down, and now you think, oh my gosh, this grandmother, I totally forgot she wasn't represented. Then you say, okay, everybody back into the constellation. I want the grandmother. You don't do that. You own it. It's done. Assure you the client has become what they wanted, what they came from, even if they don't know it. Yeah. Don't open up a case again. Right? And don't talk about it neither. You don't need to talk about that. You are not there to open all your, your heart to the group. That's not why you're there for. The client wants to talk about the meaning of the constellation is obviously something that happens a lot. Yeah. So my take on it is don't talk about the meaning of the constellation, but you can talk about the dynamic. So you can say, okay, you might have not seen it, but there was a victim perpetrator dynamic, right? But you would not go on and on and on and talk because this is watering it down. Yeah. But you can explain things that need explanation if it wasn't clear, right? Or in one of this constellation I did in person lately, there was a really strong energy of a man, and all women in the room, all women felt threatened by them. And it was really a situation like a psychopath mass murder thingy that came up there. In the generations, of course, not that the client, because he hasn't murdered anybody. Well, he said, so he said. So we assume it is a generational thing, right? Then everybody was confused. What is going on there? No? So I said then when we were finished that we looked at a kind of situation that was like a psychopath mass murder situation, like Jack the Ripper. I was thinking of Jack the Ripper when I saw that. That's all. Yeah, that's all. That's just an explanation so everybody's on the same page, because you can't let them go in confused, especially not if it's such a strong energy. Yeah, that's important. But that's all. It's an information. You're not discussing it. You're not going next. You're not creating stories or trying to give them something so they can sleep at night. You have to trust that the field is guiding them. So the next trap is the client is not satisfied with the result. Now, what do we do with that? We say, well, that's not our problem, right? Right? Because then he just comes into the ego. But you can, of course, be more polite and more understanding and say to him or her, wait up to half a year for the movements of the soul taking place. We cannot analyze the result of a family constellation. We have to wait till the movement of the soul comes to an end, because the movement is not at the it does not stop at the end of a constellation. It goes on up to half a year. Right? So even if the client is not satisfied with the result will show later. Or the client comes back for another constellation because it was just the beginning, right, of something. So this is how you would talk to them. Okay, we have no time for the exercise because we are way over. I don't know where all this time is, but I want to talk to you about serving. And that's the last word, and it's not my word. This is another quote. And this is not a quote of Bert Hellinger. This is a quote of Bert Hellinger's favorite poet. I don't know whether you ever heard of Rainer Maria Rilke, the very famous German poet, and it was absolutely Bert Hellinger's favorite poet. He was reading it out in sessions, this works. And this is what I have for you to go home with today. If you have this love for what is humble and try very simple, as someone who serves to win the confidence of what seems poor, then everything will become easier for you, more coherent and somehow more reconciling, not in your conscious mind perhaps, which stays behind, astonished, but in your innermost awareness, awakeness, and knowledge. And you don't need to understand it, you just feel it in your heart. And I say goodbye, let you go. I see you tomorrow at 6, and if there are any questions, we can discuss it before we start again. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Night. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.